Welcome back to TalkBack. We're talking to Lieutenant General Asad Durrani, former DG of the MI and the ISI. General, are you ready for this one? The militarization of our civil society is being bandied about as a collateral damage of the military rule. Old soldiers, obviously partial to their own institution, consider civilization of the military to be the more grievous fallout. An efficient army is Spartan in character. Over time, the trait has undoubtedly been undermined. During the present regime, the notion seems to have been stately discarded. Honor and glory are no longer to be adequate incentives for service in arms. Perks and privileges for various ranks have been broadened and deepened, with additional plots for every few years of color service as bonus. In keeping the army in good humor, yet another sign that its leader was not confident of its unflinching ability. Do you remember this, sir?
This is my confessional statement. It was published in the paper.
This is the 28th of April, 2007, so in an article titled The House of Straw in the Nation. Now, General, very interestingly, you too have served in the civilization of the military. You've taken 2 civilian posts, first as ambassador to Germany, then as the ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Isn't it a little contradictory? And isn't this the classic case, General? Isn't this a classic case of being pro-army when you're in the army, of being pro-army when you're taking civilian jobs, but being anti-army when you're done? Or rather, pro-democracy when you're done?
Retired military officers do get such posts, almost in every country, including United States, UK, so many others. So I did those assignments, all right. I am talking about the effect on the military when over a long period of time, repeatedly it gets involved in civilian affairs. You said militarization of the civil society. People like us were more worried because of this about the civilization of the military culture. So that is what I was talking about.
But General, you've been a part of the civilization of the military culture.
Sure.
Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Then how can you go ahead and make such a contradictory statement? This is
absolutely not, it is not contradictory.
This is
no, it is
this
not.
Is anti-establishment. This is anti-army today. This statement goes ahead. You go ahead and say that the army today is over-involved in civilian affairs, that generals are getting too many plots.
So, what's the problem with this?
General, here's a list, and I'm sure you will recognize some of the names on it. There's over 200 personnel, soldiers, generals, brigadiers, colonels, friends of yours, senior, junior, involved in the Pakistani government today, the civilian government.
True.
How do you feel about that?
No, it's essentially, in principle, it is wrong if you have former military officers serving in civilian posts beyond a certain quota. There is a certain quota that was fixed for them long time ago by the civilian
What's
government.
the need for that quota, by the way?
I think
why does the military have to intervene or encroach on civilian affairs?
The reason was not a bad one, because the military officers retire much early, and after that they needed some more time to serve before they can retire.
Do you think military officers are trained to take on civilian bureaucratic affairs?
Certain jobs,
you think
perhaps.
So?
No, not trained in that sense. Administrative jobs, security jobs. As far as the ambassadorial jobs are concerned, people would contest that, but people from all walks of life.
General, as a former man of arms, can you explain this to me? 29, this is personnel, military personnel serving in Pakistan's institutions. 20 after they have retired. 29 in Industries and Production Ministry. 2 in the Health Ministry. 24 in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. 52 in Defense Production Division. That maybe kind of makes sense. But how about 98 in Communications Ministry? 13 posts in the Cabinet Division. Why is this going on, General? When will the encroachment stop? And you've been a part of the process.
Yeah. I have also talked about, what is wrong with the process, but so many of them might have been technical people. Other than doing administrative or security jobs, communication, signal officers might have gone there. So we do not know the background of everyone or every posting. And some of that can be justified, but in principle, when so many people go and take away the jobs of the civilians where you have better qualified civilians available, that would be wrong.
Do you believe in the ridiculous perks and benefits which retired officers get?
I think it is not going to be sustainable over a long period of time.
Do you agree with the fact that it's rather ridiculous, sir?
I think it is unreasonable.
And you don't think it's going to be sustainable over a long period of time?
Because, you see, after all, everything has its limit. The land will run out. So many perks we may not be able to afford giving so many perks to retired people over a long period of time. We may not be able to give these perks and privileges even to people in service, civil and military.
Were you a recipient of land, General?
That's right.
How do you feel about that?
At that time, since it was being given and you thought that, well, it is my post-retirement benefit, you took it.
So, General, let me get this right. Everything which happened during your time and around your time is okay at that time, as you say. And you took it and you were a part of it. You took the civilian military jobs, you took the perks, you took the benefits, you took the land. And now, after you're done, you're writing in the nation, you're writing in the newspapers that it's all wrong. Can you explain the contradiction, sir?
You see, this is the extent to which these benefits are given. If the governments were to fix, and when I say talk about governments, I'm talking about that big civilian umbrella, that they work out the benefits given to certain officers, civil and military, and if anything that fits into that, that should be all right. But if it becomes unreasonable, and if they are going to be dished out beyond reasonableness, for example, the civilian officers, I'm not trying to justify what the military might be doing. I mean, sometimes the civilian officers get benefits about which we never ever know. How many plots can a civilian deputy commissioner, for example, allot? No one knows. Maybe one to one. How does it work out in practice? When in one's days one knew a little more about it, when these things were pointed out, usually the answer was, but that is within the ambit of the rules.
It's funny you just mentioned civilians. We're going to take a sidestep. It's funny you just mentioned civilians. In another article of yours, generals fired and retired, you call civilians your civilian nemesis. Is that the mentality of a retired general?
No, it was written in a very lighter vein in this article.
Are civilians your nemesis, General?
In this article, I was taking a dig at the generals, not at the civilian nemesis so much. But when, an odd friend of mine did talk about, dead elephants and live elephants, so that is why I thought that I'll get back to him in a very light vein, in a very sportsmanship way.
General, briefly, coming back to the land, what about this? Major generals and above, this is what is entitled. Major generals and above, this is in the book by Aisha Siddiqa, Military Incorporated. Major generals above receive 240 acres of land. Brigadiers and colonels receive 150 acres of land. Lieutenant colonels receive 124 acres. Lieutenants to majors receive at least 100 acres. Even your JCOs and your NCOs get at least 64 to 32 acres respectively. Coming back to the land.
This is
at
wrong.
These
60 figures are
per
wrong.
acre.
Come on, these figures are wrong. I think what people get, and whatever they get, I may not be able to defend that, but whatever they get is far less. Much less. These poor JCOs and NCOs have no chance of getting 30 or 60 acres.
And final words on the civilian encroachment on civilian jobs. Final words. What do you say?
I've already said that I think unless it is within a particular framework that has been worked out by the government, it would be wrong.
That's good to hear. Well, we are talking to a nemesis of the civilians. We are talking to Lieutenant General Asad Durrani. Stay tuned to TalkBack. We will be right back.